Yes, this morning, you watched the speeches last night from Kamala Harris and Barack Obama. You read the tweets from President Trump. It's almost as if they're speaking to two completely different countries. And President Obama conceded last night that most Americans have made up their minds. Is there anyone left to be persuaded right now? And what must Joe Biden do to convince them?
Well, I think the biggest persuasion we need is to have people come out and vote in the first place. You know this. We had a very significant non-participation rate in the 2016 election. And, I think that that's the challenge in our country. It's always been. It's what our ancestors talked about. It's about apathy is one of the greatest enemies of a democracy. So I'm hoping that last night energized people, ignited people, let people know what's at stake, and most importantly, that they have the power to make a difference in this nation.
And what does Joe Biden do tonight?
I think Joe Biden shows us his heart. I know that one thing I found particularly impressive about him on the campaign trail is how much he really does lead with a love of folks. And you can't lead the people if you don't love the people. And I think a lot of Americans are tired of politics. They're tired of the divisions. They're tired of the kind of rancor. And I think he can really rise in America and be a healer and remind our country that the lines that divide us are not as strong as the ties that bind us. I really believe we're at a point in America where we need to, all of us, to try to generate a revival of civic grace. And I think that he has that kind of decency to do that, and I think we'll see that tonight.
We've never seen a former president take on a sitting president the way Barack Obama took on Donald Trump last night as an existential threat to our democracy. Well, President Trump is saying the only way he's going to lose is if the election is rigged. So are you convinced this will be a fair election, and what must be done for Americans to see it as fair?
Well, I think that we have already seen a president do things that are unprecedented, and it's not Barack Obama giving a critique of Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump doing everything from turning armed forces on peaceful protesters in front of Lafayette Square, or Donald Trump attacking the Postal Service the way he is in days before an election. This is a time where we've seen so many norms trashed by this president, so many institutions attacked, from our freedom of speech and journalists like you, all the way to our own intelligence officers. And so there is a credible belief out there by many folks in our government and elsewhere that we are at a point where our democracy is being stress tested like it never has before. But as a person who grew up with two civil rights parents, I know about obstacles that have been placed to vote before. I know about the challenges that we've faced in having fair elections. And so there may be dirty tricks from this president. We're already seeing it right now, again, with the post office. But I learned from my parents and grandparents that obstacles will always be put up, but our determination to surmount them is what's important. And so I hope Americans are not deterred and press on in what is the most important election of our lifetime that will define how this country moves forward, not only in the spirit of America, our ability to manifest kindness and love for one another, but also issues that are affecting the entire planet, like climate change. This is such an important election. We cannot allow any excuses to stop us from participating.
We're just about out of time. What's the number one point you want to make tonight?
I think I want to talk to that heart and spirit of our country and remind us that patriotism is love of country, and you can't love your country unless you love your fellow countrymen and women. And that doesn't mean we always have to agree or even like each other, but we have to understand that we're all in this together. And love is not sentimentality. It means that we're willing to stand up for each other, to sacrifice for each other, to in many ways fight in this generation to do what I think is one of our greatest calls, which is to put more indivisible back in our one nation under God.
Senator Booker, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
We will have full coverage of the Democratic Convention beginning tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern on ABC News Live. I'll be anchoring on the network in primetime starting at 10 Eastern. And on Sunday, Robin and Dave.
One of those speakers is New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, a one-time presidential hopeful himself. He joins us now. Senator Booker, always good to see you, sir. Thanks for your time.
It's great to be on with you this morning. Thanks so much.
Let's talk about last night here, and let's start with former President Obama breaking presidential protocol by going after his incumbent successor at a convention, saying that Donald Trump hasn't grown into the job because he's not capable of it, said that our democratic institutions are at stake come November. It was a sober but scathing indictment of Mr. Trump. What does that say to you about where we are in this election?
Well, look, I mean, Donald Trump has been invoking Obama's name continuously since he took office. Even before that, with the racist birther attacks, it seems like he's made his presidency almost like a vendetta against President Obama. But yet President Obama kept his dignity and distance. You see this president having attacked institutions that should be sacred to all of us, including your profession, the free press. And I think President Obama has done what he should be doing, which is not only keeping the honor of the former presidency and those traditions that we see, as we saw him and George Bush and Bill Clinton, for example, at John Lewis's funeral. But I think last night was important to hear President Obama speak from his heart and do it in an equipoise way that really challenged us as American citizens. That are we going to sit on the sidelines and treat this democracy like a spectator sport, or are we going to recognize the gravity and the importance of this election and get on the field? And like a great former coach, he got out of the stands, got on the sideline, and told us to get into the game.
Your friend, your colleague there in the upper chamber, a woman you've called your sister, Senator Kamala Harris, accepting the nomination last night. What was your top line takeaway from her speech?
Besides having to hold the tissue box close to me as I watched history being made, it was a very moving, emotional moment. And whatever where you are on the American political spectrum, you've got to sit back for a second and realize or feel a sense of pride about this nation. That just 20 years ago, this would have been inconceivable. But now we have this woman of extraordinary competence, acumen, really excellence, now ascending to that position. It was a beautiful night. Our ancestors are standing up and cheering, and so many young people around this country. My phone was blowing up with women especially, who are mothers, just saying one of the most precious nights of their life watching politics was last night as they got to see this woman of grace and dignity assume that position. It was truly historic.
There's been some criticism, as you're probably aware this week, that Democrats have spent too much time going after President Trump instead of promoting their own policies and building up their own candidate. And there's this recent NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, Senator Booker. It found that among Biden voters, 58% are using their vote against President Trump. 36% are using it for Joe Biden. What's going to be your case tonight? What are you going to say?
Well, I ran a whole presidential campaign saying that this election is not a referendum on one man in one office. It's actually a referendum on who we are and who we're going to be to each other. That if anything in America, we have to recognize the lessons of our ancestors, that darkness can't drive out darkness, hate can't drive out hate. We need to rise to a higher love in this nation. We need to have a revival of civic grace. We need to know that patriotism, it's a word that means love of country, but you really can't love your country unless you really do love your fellow countrymen and women. And love isn't sentimentality. It says that you may be different than me, but I'm going to sacrifice for you. I'll stand for you. And if necessary, like ancestors before, from the beaches of Normandy to the bowels of Mississippi's bayous, Americans died for us so that we could have this democracy. And that's the honor and tradition that we have to continue in this country. This is got to be about creating that beloved community in our nation again.
Senator Booker, really quickly here, as you know, the Postmaster General, Mr. DeJoy, he's hit pause on these changes at the Postal Service until after the election. There's some exclusive video that's been obtained by NBC News, and it appears to show high-volume mail sorting machines out of service, dismantled in Waterloo, Iowa, even though those machines were supposed to be reallocated. Here's that video. The Postmaster General is going to be testifying before a Senate committee tomorrow. You're not on the committee, but what do you want to hear from the Postmaster General?
Well, again, this is one of those stretches in American history where I try to stop telling myself to be surprised, whether it's a president turning on peaceful protesters with weapons and gas and bullets, or what I'm seeing right now, a constitutionally mandated post office, so critical for our veterans, our seniors, people living paycheck to paycheck, being strangled by a president, slowing it down, removing mailboxes, removing sorting machines, cutting the overtime necessary for postal workers to get their job done, come sleet, come hail, come dark, a storm. And so this is a time that all Americans should be concerned and if not outraged that we have such backlogs happening at the post office. And so this man must account. This is the job of Congress, which is to provide check balance, and oversight to the executive branch. And he must account for what he's done and understand that this isn't about the election simply. It's really about the delivery of vital medications. And people right now, who if their paycheck is 5 days late, they miss a rent payment. They are not able to put food on the table. This is an American crisis of the Donald Trump administration making. And this man who seems like his biggest qualification to get his job is that he's a $1 million plus donor to Donald Trump. This is unacceptable. And again, he must account.
Senator Cory Booker, we'll have to leave it there. Senator Booker, thank you. Good luck to you tonight as well. And a reminder, you can watch the final night of the Democratic National Convention, 7 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific tonight, you know?